Marcus Rivera had $47 in his checking account on a Tuesday morning in March 2019. Not $407,000. Not $470. $47. He sat in a beige cubicle in downtown Chicago under fluorescent lights that hummed at exactly the pitch of low-grade anxiety, and he opened a spreadsheet, not to do his job, to count the gap between what he earned and what he owed. The number staring back at him was $2,340, the monthly shortfall between his $58,000 salary and his actual expenses. He was a professional. He had a degree. He ate lunch at his desk. He did everything right. So why was he losing ground every single month? Here is the question that changes everything, and I need you to hold it in your mind before I give you the answer. What if the thing you believe is required to build wealth is the exact thing that has been keeping you broke? Not laziness, not bad luck, not the economy. The belief itself, because in the next 17 minutes, you are going to watch that belief get dismantled piece by piece, using real numbers from real people who started exactly where Marcus started, with nothing, and built something that should have been impossible. The answer exists. The path is documented. But most people will leave before they find it, and that exit will cost them more than they can calculate right now. Marcus is not a character I invented. He is a composite of 11 people I tracked across 4 years, all of whom arrived at the same Tuesday morning moment. That specific fluorescent-lit reckoning, where the math stops working and the old story about effort and reward starts cracking. They ranged in age from 26 to 41. They worked in marketing, logistics, healthcare administration, and education. Their salaries ranged from $44,000 to $71,000. Every single one of them had a positive income and a negative net worth simultaneously. They were professionals living in the economic equivalent of a slow leak. Not a blowout, just a slow, steady, invisible drain. The financial industry has a term for this condition. They call it being income-rich and asset-poor. It sounds clinical. It feels like drowning in slow motion. You make enough to survive, but never enough to build. You pay bills on time, which feels like discipline. But what it actually means is you are keeping everyone else's wealth machine running, the banks, the landlords, the insurance companies, while your own machine sits in a box, unassembled, somewhere in a future you cannot see yet. 81% of American workers earning between $40,000 and $75,000 report having less than $1,000 in liquid savings at any given time. 81%. That is not a personal failure distributed across millions of individuals. That is a structural outcome wearing the costume of personal responsibility. Here is what the standard advice gives people in Marcus's position. Save 3 to 6 months of expenses before you invest. Cut your lattes. Open a Roth IRA. The problem, and this is the problem nobody in a suit on TV will say out loud, is that advice was written for people who already have a surplus. It was written for someone with $800 left over at the end of the month. Marcus had negative $2,340. The advice does not apply. It never applied. And the fact that nobody told him that is the first crack in a system that was never designed with him in mind. So if the old framework doesn't work for the majority of professionals, what framework does? That answer starts with a number most financial educators refuse to touch, and that number is 0, because 0 turns out not to be a wall. It turns out to be a door, but only if you know which way it opens. The first thing you have to understand is what wealth actually is. Not what it feels like, not what it looks like on social media, but what it is mechanically. Wealth is not income. Wealth is not stuff. Wealth is stored time. When you own an asset that generates money without requiring your daily labor, you have converted past time into future freedom. That is the entire mechanism. Everything else, stocks, real estate, businesses, those are just different containers for the same thing. Marcus's problem was not that he lacked money. His problem was that every hour he worked converted directly into expenses and evaporated. He had no container. Here is the crack in the conventional story. You do not need money to build a container. You need value. And value is something every professional adult already has in quantities they systematically underestimate. Marcus spent 8 years in supply chain logistics. He could look at a vendor contract and identify inefficiencies that cost companies $30,000 to $200,000 annually in avoidable fees. He knew this the way a carpenter knows which wood will warp intuitively, immediately, without effort. He had never once considered that this knowledge was a container waiting to be built. The average professional adult has between 3,000 and 8,000 hours of domain-specific expertise that someone else would pay to access. Not eventually. Now, today, the market for consulting, fractional expertise, and knowledge products crossed $1.1 trillion in 2023. That market does not require a storefront. It does not require startup capital. It requires specificity, the ability to name exactly what problem you solve, for exactly whom, at exactly what cost in their current situation. Step 1 is what researchers at the University of Chicago's Booth School of Business call value extraction mapping. You are not brainstorming, you are auditing. You take 3 years of your professional life and you list every problem you solved that had a measurable financial consequence for someone else. Not tasks, consequences. Marcus listed 23 items in 40 minutes. The average dollar value attached to each consequence, $47,000. He had solved roughly $1 million worth of problems for employers who paid him $58,000 a year to do it. The gap between those two numbers is not a complaint. It is a business model. Marcus sat with this for 11 days. 11 days of telling himself it was too good to be true, that people like him didn't do things like that he wasn't an expert, just a guy who knew his job. That internal resistance, that specific flavor of self-dismissal, is the most expensive habit most professionals never examine. It costs more than any latte. It costs years. Step 2 is packaging. Packaging is just translation. You take the thing you know and you describe it in terms of the pain it removes for someone who currently has that pain and does not know you exist. Marcus's package, a 90-minute contract audit for logistics companies doing between $2 and $15 in annual vendor spend. His price, $1,500. His claim, he would identify at minimum $15,000 in recoverable costs or the session was free. He wrote that offer in 47 words on a single page. Step 3 is the hardest. Not technically, emotionally, you have to send the offer to someone. Marcus sent it to 9 people he had worked with over 8 years. Not strangers, not cold leads. 9 people who already knew what he could do. 3 responded within 48 hours. 2 became clients within 2 weeks. His first month of consulting revenue, while still working his full-time job, in the evenings, on a laptop balanced on his kitchen counter, was $4,800. But here is what matters more than the $4,800. That money did not go into savings. It did not go into an index fund. It went into something that would make the next dollar faster to earn, cheaper to generate, and permanent in a way that a salary check structurally cannot be. And that distinction between a dollar that replicates and a dollar that evaporates is the entire engine of what comes next. We are halfway through what Marcus built, and the number you know right now, $4,800, is the smallest number in this story. What comes next is the part that changes the math permanently, not incrementally, not a raise, not a bonus. A structural shift in the relationship between his time and his income that made the old equation obsolete. But before we get there, here's the question you need to sit with for the next 60 seconds. What is your $47,000 consequence? Not your job title, not your resume. The specific problem you have solved for real people with real financial stakes that you have never once put a price tag on. Because the answer to that question, your answer, not Marcus's, is the actual subject of everything that follows. Most people who watch content like this leave before this moment. They get the concept, they feel the possibility, and then they click away and the possibility evaporates. What they lose is not inspiration. What they lose is the operational sequence. the exact mechanism that converts the concept into cash flow. That sequence starts right now. Marcus took his first $4,800 and bought a $497 course on building productized services, not because he needed the information, but because paying for his own education with money he earned outside his salary rewired something in his brain about what category of person he was. He stopped being an employee who consulted on the side. He became a business owner who also held a day job. That cognitive shift cost $490 and returned more than any other single investment he made in the following 36 months. By month 4, Marcus had his process documented. 90-minute audit, templated report, 3 implementation recommendations ranked by ROI impact. He could deliver the entire product in 4 hours, including the follow-up. At $1,500 per client, 4 clients a month generated $6,000 in monthly revenue. His full-time job paid him $4,833 per month after taxes. His consulting practice now exceeded his salary while demanding roughly 16 hours of his week. Month 7. Marcus hired a virtual assistant for $12 per hour, 10 hours per week, to handle client scheduling, report formatting, and follow-up emails. His personal time per client dropped from 4 hours to 90 minutes. He added 2 clients. Monthly revenue hit $9,000. His margin was 94%. A traditional business owner building comparable revenue might carry 40% margins after overhead. Marcus's dollars were structurally more powerful than most business revenue, and he understood that in a way that changed every decision that followed. At month 9, he received a performance review and a 3% raise that added $145 per month to his check. He thanked his manager and thought about the $4,167 gap between that raise and what he had built himself in less than a year with no starting capital, no investors, no loan, and no permission from anyone. The moment Marcus understood he was no longer dependent on his employer for his financial trajectory, that specific Tuesday morning when the math finally ran in his direction, he described it as the closest thing to silence he had felt in 8 years. Not celebration. Silence. The absence of the low-grade hum of financial dread that had been running underneath every professional interaction, every performance review, every unexpected car repair for nearly a decade. Here is the full architecture Marcus built between March 2019 and December 2021. Not as inspiration, as instruction. Month 1 through 3. Service consulting, 0 capital, $4,800 first month, $6,000 by month 4. Month 7. First hire, leverage introduced, revenue scaled to $9,000 monthly. Month 11. Marcus productized his audit into a self-guided digital course priced at $297, sold through a free email newsletter he had been writing every Thursday for 4 months. First month of course sales, $3,552 from 12 buyers. He spent $0 on advertising. Every buyer came from organic referrals and his newsletter list of 340 people. Month 14, Marcus left his job, not dramatically. He gave 4 weeks' notice on a Wednesday, shook hands with people he genuinely liked, and walked out of that beige cubicle carrying a laptop bag and a monthly revenue of $14,200. His expenses had not changed. His net monthly surplus was $8,900. He invested $6,000 of it per month into a total market index fund. By December 2021, 33 months from that Tuesday, with $47 in his account, Marcus's portfolio held $127,400. His consulting and course revenue had stabilized at $16,800 per month. He had 2 contractors, a wait list, and a business that ran without his daily involvement. 0 starting capital, 0 investors, 0 debt. The number that matters most in this story is not $127,400. It is 33 months. The average professional investing $500 per month in an S&P 500 index fund from scratch reaches $127,400 in approximately 14 years at historical average returns. Marcus reached it in 33 months. The difference is not luck. The difference is sequence. He built income first, then invested it at a rate that compressed the timeline by a factor of 5. And here is the thing about Marcus that financial content will never lead with. He was not exceptional. He was not a prodigy. He was not uniquely positioned. He was a man with 8 years of domain expertise, a Tuesday morning reckoning, and the willingness to spend 11 days sitting with discomfort before he moved. So here is what you now carry that you did not have 19 minutes ago. Wealth is stored time, not accumulated money. Zero capital is not a barrier. It is a starting position that requires a different sequence, not a different destination. The 3-step mechanism: value extraction, mapping, packaging, and direct outreach to people who already trust you. The first dollar you earn outside your salary is not income. It is proof of concept. And proof of concept changes the category of person you believe yourself to be. Your homework before this video ends: write down 3 professional problems you have solved in the last 3 years that had a measurable financial consequence for someone else. 3. That list is the beginning of your container. If this video shifted something for you, subscribe, because the next video breaks down exactly how to price your expertise without undercharging, using the same methodology Marcus used to set his $1,500 price point with zero market research and a 100% close rate on his first 5 outreach attempts. That video posts Thursday. Do not miss the mechanism.